Okay? So here D sub 1, and that's D sub 2 for the return trip. Now here, remember D equals S by T. Okay? So D here equals S by T for the return trip, and then S by T for the second trip. Okay? S here is the speed, 55 miles per hour. Then the amount of time. T is the time, S is the speed. I'm not going to include the units. If you did, just treat the units as algebraic quantities and cancel them, but you don't have to incorporate the units. It's not necessary. So here we put in 2.4, and here put in our speed of 55 for the first trip. And for the second trip, our speed is unknown, so we can write X. You could also write a question mark. You could still write the same question mark, but we'll write X. Okay? We'll just use question mark, because that represents unknown. That's what we're looking for. Now, 2 hours was the time. Remember, we're saying this D equals S by T. Speed and the time. See? Okay? Using the distance formula, D equals S by T. Or speed by time. Now here, what we're going to do, we're going to have to bring this 2 to the other side. Okay, we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 2 to find out our unknown value for X, or the question mark. Okay? So we just bring 2 to the other side of the equation by dividing both sides of the equation by 2. Here, 2 cancels out. Okay, so we end up just with that left. Okay? Now we can find out what this is. Do 55 times 2.4, that's 132. Okay. 132 divided by 2. Okay, so what is that? That is 66. Okay. And then here, now we were talking about the speed, trying to find the speed, which S is found, whereas the return speed of the return trip is found now. It's 66 miles per hour. Or the speed of the return trip. 66 miles per hour. Now, if you want to check that, okay. Now, how do we check this? We know that that's 66 miles per hour. Okay. Now we want to check. Remember, I never even calculated and showed you how much the distance actually was. You see, we didn't even have to actually know what it was. We know that it was equal, and that was enough. You see, we knew that that was equal, and that was enough. But here, we'll start up here. D sub 1 represents the distance. That's 2.4 times 55. And of course, the distance, we're going to report that in miles. So it's 55 times 2.4. It's 132. See? 132 miles. We did get this number after when we divided 132 by 2. So it did come up before. Now that's the distance. Now we already said that d sub 1 is equal to d sub 2 because that's the same distance. So if 66 miles is correct, then when I check it, then I should be able to do 2 times 66, and that should equal 132, which we know it does. 132 divided by 2 is 66. Okay. So here's our answer. Our answer is 66 miles per hour to answer the question. Find the fee for the return trip. Okay, here we have another word problem. A car and a bus leave a city at the same time, traveling in opposite directions. The car travels 50 miles per hour and the bus travels 60 miles per hour. In how many hours will they be 275 miles apart? Okay, in how many hours will they be 275 miles apart? Okay, so this first piece of information, let's draw a diagram of the first piece of information where it says a car and a bus leave a city at the same time, traveling in opposite directions. So here, first let's draw our city. That's the city. Okay, the car and the bus. So the car, we'll say goes that way. And the bus goes that way. Okay? And they're going in opposite directions. The car travels 50 miles per hour. Okay, so we get 50 miles per hour. The bus travels 60 miles per hour. Okay? Then our third piece of information, how many hours will they be in? Will they be 275 miles apart? That 275 miles is a piece of information that's giving us something to calculate by. Meaning, you have two things traveling at some point, you know, at this point they're at a certain distance away from each other. Then at that point they're a certain distance away from each other. You know, at some point they're going to be, if both are steady traveling, they're going to be 275 miles apart. So you draw another line up under there, represents the distance between both. And when we stop at, that represents a moment in time. But we don't know the time yet. So here we draw, so this is a length of 275 miles. Okay? Well, no, at what, and how many hours will they be 275 miles apart? Okay, now this is a problem that's equivalent to, now you gotta look at what's making the distance. What's making the distance is both of these cars traveling. Let's say they're both traveling on the road and they're both making the distance. Okay. So we get this is one side of the road and this is the other side of the road. Okay, that's supposed to be a car.